shit. Okay, so Corey had to leave. He got a little too worked up. He had to go collect himself.
Take a walk around the block.
Yeah,
down a little bit.
He had to take several walks around several blocks. So we're here, Brandon, Jay, and Jesse. We're going to finish on a more positive note, talking about what we're most into now, like in the present day. What is it we're most into now? Brandon, why don't you kick us off?
All right, NXT, even though it's tied to mainstream WWE, NXT has become its own entity. A lot of breakout stars that are going to be the future of WWE start in NXT. First and foremost, Neville. Guys like Finn Balor, guys like Big Cass and Enzo Amore. But you also introduced me the last couple of days to a wrestling promotion known as Chikara.
Chikara Pro. Shout out to Chikara.
Major shout out to Chikara. Ultramantis Black. Wow. I mean, puts on one hell of a show. It's just a damn shame that he had to retire early in his career.
Leg injury.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
But aside from the fact that it's consistently on a week-to-week basis better than Raw, like, what is it that you like about NXT?
the fresh look.
Do you think it focuses more on the actual wrestling than it does
focuses,
dumb skits?
Yeah, it focuses majorly on wrestling. And, I mean, it's still got the vignettes and
that was, you said that was more where, like, the focus on women's wrestling and actually letting them have matches started, right?
Right, and we're not talking about divas or, you know, bra and panties matches.
It's like actually wrestling.
Wrestling. Getting in the ring and wrestling. There's actually been a few daughters of professional wrestlers from the past, like Tully Blanchard, his wife, his daughter is Tessa Blanchard. She's wrestling there. Who else? Charlotte, Ric Flair's daughter.
Even though nobody knows who her parents are, technically Paige is Brittany Knight. She comes from a British wrestling family.
Right. Who else is like... Paul Ellering's daughter.
Oh, shit.
She's wrestling in NXT.
Oh, there you go.
So,
and, yes, sir. What are you doing?
I'm totally blank on her name.
What are you doing?
Anvil's daughter.
Natalia.
Oh, sure. She's been around.
She's been around, but
yeah.
Another kind of legacy wrestler.
Yeah, she's the daughter of Jim the Anvil Neidhart, granddaughter of Stu Hart, niece of Owen and Brett, etc. You know, she's got a legacy.
Yeah, definitely.
One guy that I've never really gotten that into NXT, but one guy that was around for a couple minutes that I had high hopes for, and then he fucked off for some reason, was Jesse White, or they gave him a different name, but he was the son of Vader, Big Van Vader.
Oh.
And I think they called him like Jake something.
Huh.
And he was tagged up with someone. And I liked him. He was good, but for some reason he didn't work out, and they released him. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't recall anything like that.
He was tall, but he wasn't big, thick like his dad. He was more lean. But I had high hopes for Vader's son. That didn't work out. But, and then Jay, you are into, as you already mentioned, a company called Lucha Underground, which is a U.S. outlet for the Mexican wrestling promotion AAA.
I praise the gospel of Lucha Underground at this point. It gives me my wrestling fix.
I think part of it also you mentioned that you like, it's similar to Chikara. I wish Chikara had their budget, but similar to Chikara, they are very theatrical and they're not afraid to tell really outlandish stories.
One of my favorite wrestlers in the promotion, Aerostar.
Yeah.
His story arc this year is that they have a big thing. It's called Lucha Underground. They have like a big like Aztec kind of
temple
theme, Aztec temple. Yeah. And there's like the 7 tribes, and there's a big threat against him, but he's 1,000 years too early. So he literally is talking to like a native, like an Aztec, ancient Aztec warrior. And it's like, oh shit, I'm 1,000 years early. I guess I better blast off into space and time travel and go to Lucha Underground.
Yeah, time travel.
Yeah, of course.
Why not? Yeah.
The thing I love, like, as far as the storylines go, WWE has always had like that weird kayfabe thing, and if you don't know what that is, it's
keeping up the pretense that everything you're seeing is totally legit,
is real, and that they'll have things where it's like, oh, they'll have a feud between two people, and they'll get on their Twitter accounts and be like, I fucking hate this guy.
Yeah. Like, or back in the day, they would go so far as to, like, they were good guy and bad guy wrestlers weren't allowed to ever be seen together in public.
Yeah.
Because that was breaking kayfabe.
Yeah. And it's just ridiculous.
Curtain call incident.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that it's like, we all know it's fake. Why are you still trying to make people outside of the ring seem this way? And then your storylines are like, oh, he slept with so-and-so.
Yeah.
Lucha Underground.
I'm the best in the world and I'm going to beat you.
Yeah.
You know,
Lucha Underground's like, oh, one of their things, you watched that match with Joey Ryan earlier.
Yeah.
He is actually an undercover cop.
Oh, fuck.
With one of the other guys, and they're trying to bring down the main bad guy, Dario Cueto, who was actually just some actor that they hired to be...
Who's the big bad? I heard people were making a big deal about some giant big bad that they brought in.
You know, it was a lot of hype, and I was a little disappointed.
He doesn't seem as tall as I would imagine him being. Yeah.
He's Dario's brother, and
okay.
he, in the storyline, like, murdered a guy. Like,
oh, fuck.
You gotta put him in a cage, because he's a dangerous person.
Yeah.
One of the other characters, the storyline is that he murdered her parents, and so she has to train to come to Lucha Underground to defeat him.
Revenge, yeah.
And he came out, and he's a strong dude.
Yeah.
He does a thing where he'll do what kind of suplex? It's kind of like a... Crap, I don't know what it's called. It's almost like a pump handle position, almost.
Sure.
It's like a side slam.
Yeah.
And he'll do like a float over, and he'll do it a couple of times. And he's done it against some bigger dudes. Like, he's a really strong guy, but then you have like a wrestler like Mil Muertes, who's a really big guy also.
Mm-hmm.
So when this guy came out and he's like an inch shorter than Mil Muertes, you're like, oh, well. Like, he's not this giant you kind of hyped it up to be.
Yeah.
But their storylines are fun. Their characters are super athletic. Because they do have a lot of, like, those high-flying luchadors. They don't have a women's division because their women just fight the guys.
Yeah.
One of the Ivelisse, she had a title shot, I mean, it was against Mil Muertes, who's a giant, and you can be as fast and cutting as you want, but that man's a monster.
Yeah.
They don't make a point where it's like, oh, girls' voice versus boys, like, when China did it, it was a huge deal.
Sure.
This is just kind of like... Oh,
Chikara is the same thing. They don't have any divisions.
Yeah.
There's only a couple chicks. And they don't, like, spoilers. Oh, God. This is spoiler territory for Brandon. I'm just going to say it anyway for the case of the podcast. Their current grand champion is a woman. That was, like, a big deal. That was even an article. They had an article in the fucking Rolling Stone magazine about it. Because... it was the first historical incident in U.S. history where a woman held the title of a predominantly male promotion,
Like, I could see Lucha Underground doing it.
Sure.
Like, they're not afraid to put women in the spotlight. And Brandon had mentioned the NXT stuff, which sounds great.
Yeah.
Because we grew up with, it was just Jerry the King Lawler yelling puppies the whole time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Stupid attitude shit.
Yeah, like, I'm glad it sounds at least...
Mud wrestling matches and all this dumb shit.
Sounds good that at least WWE is hopefully going to a
more
place with its...
I think they did it more on NXT, from what I understand, than on Raw. Like, from what I understand, like, yeah, they put a bunch of new women on Raw, but then they still don't typically let them have long matches. They basically just had people start doing, like, trios or atomicos, which is like 4-on-4 or 5-on-5, a bunch of, like, big team matches, basically. Like, so it was something, it was better than what they had been doing, which was, like, having all the Diva Search models and shit. But, like, they still, need to give them more time. If they're gonna bother having women's wrestling at all, right?
Yeah.
And, like, so yeah, and Chikara, that's my big thing. The way that I stay in love with wrestling is Chikara Pro. If you're not familiar with what Chikara is, it's a smaller indie promotion. It's actually one of the bigger indie promotions in the U.S., but compared to even like Lucha Underground or whatever, TNA, it's small time. It's small potatoes, small budget. But it's basically, they treat their shit like performance art. They don't consider themselves sports entertainment. They consider themselves like a performance art. And it's like a live-action comic book. You have to suspend disbelief as a fan or just enjoy it for the silliness of it. But, they have characters like the Los Ice Creams, which are literally supposed to be living ice cream. They're wrestlers from Mexico, and their names are Ice Cream Jr. and El Hijo del Ice Cream, which just means son of the ice cream. And, you know, they're silly as fuck. They used to be bad guys, except they were inept bad guys who were more interested in fucking around instead of winning matches. And they used to do shit like, you know how Mankind would throw the thumbtack or Cactus Jack? Yeah. They had the stupid hardcore shit. Well, they'd have a bag of ice cream sprinkles, candy sprinkles that they would throw out and slam someone on that. And they would sell it like it was thumbtacks, you know? And, like, they do silly shit once in a while where, like, the wrestler Chuck Taylor used to be famous for putting grenades. He would bring out grenades and put them down someone's tights and then fucking give them an atomic drop. And everyone would sell it like a bomb just went off in the ring and everyone would fucking go flying. You know, silly shit like that. Or, like, my favorite tag team are an Egyptian-themed tag team called the Osirian Portal. And he's one of my favorite singles wrestlers also, but there's Ophidian the Cobra. Those are both masked guys. And then a black guy named Amasis the Funky Pharaoh. And they dance around a lot. And one of their moves is that, it's silly, but one of their moves when they're not being serious is Amasis will pick Ophidian up wheelbarrow style. And Ophidian has really great, like, athleticism and body control. So he'll snake his entire body and, like, hypnotize the other wrestlers and then make them dance. And, you know, just fucking shit like that. And they've had weird shit in their storylines before, like time travel. There's a character named Archibald Peck, Marchy Archie, who is, like a marching band, the goofy-ass marching band leader. And part of his gimmick is that he's been back and forth through time several times, like Back to the Future references and shit, you know? Or, like, one of their most popular groups is a group that I showed Brandon called The Colony, which is a bunch of human ants. You know, they have silver ant, fire ant, worker ant, soldier ant, etc. And at one point, I told you before, at one point back in 2012, they had, I have to mention this because the names are fantastic. There were a villainous rival team of ants that showed up called the Swarm. And their names were Assail Ant, Combat Ant, and Deviant. And I just on its face, those just are like fantastic names. Pun absolutely. Fantastic, and then later on, another heel group of, like, action hero ants showed up, and they were called Orbit Adventure Ant, Arctic Rescue Ant, and Missile Assault Ant. They were like Saturday morning cartoon shit. So they do shit like that, and it's a lot of fun. I will say, as Brandon was pointing out, even he noticed that he didn't see a lot of fuck ups. Like there are you notice a slip here or there, but in all the Chikara wrestling that I've watched, I have never seen a bad match. I have seen matches where I'm like, I could skip this, but I've never seen a match that is, like you were talking before in one of the previous episodes, that there are matches that just don't work, and they're fucking awful. I have yet to see a match in Chikara that is legitimately, like, I can't watch this as a dog shit, you know?
Lucha Underground, they take themselves seriously. There's not, like, a lot of that kind of stuff. But
there's less comedy.
There's less comedy, yeah. But at the same time, there's a guy, his name is Drago.
Mm-hmm. Dragon guy.
He's a fucking dragon.
Yeah, it's fucking
They
dragon.
literally just say, oh, he's a dragon.
No, he's literally a dragon.
He's literally a dragon.
Yeah.
And remind me to show you, one of his recent matches, he came out, and he looked like a fucking, like, he came from the pits of hell.
Did he have wings?
He has wings.
There you go.
And it's like a long, like, black tongue accessory
I've seen that. I've seen that in Chikara. Spoilers, last year, quote-unquote Team AAA actually won Chikara's big annual tournament. Their big event every year is a 3-day tournament called King of Trios, and Team AAA was in it. It was Drago, Aerostar, and this other wrestler named Phoenix, who was actually probably my favorite of the three. And they won the whole thing. They became the King of Trios 2015, and that was cool. It was fine.
Yeah, just like, well, like you said, like, because a lot of those, like you said, mentioned earlier with the AAA, a lot of those wrestlers wrestled each other in AAA. And some of the other Mexican promotions. So
you don't see a lot of fuck-ups. They gel.
And so Drago and Aerostar had a best of 5 series in the first season of Lucha Underground. They filmed it in seasons.
Yeah.
That was just excellent. I mean, it was just one of those things where you could tell that these, they're all professionals, and you could tell that they hone their craft to make these matches just flawless and just look amazing.
Yeah, it's not like there's never a fuck up, but they cover it pretty well. Since neither of us really watch NXT, like what in that regard, like have you ever, in your time watching NXT, have you seen, like, just outright, wow, that was a bad match?
Nope.
Yeah?
Nope.
It's consistently better.
Yeah.
Because Raw, absolutely. I know Raw has to have bad matches.
Oh, it does.
On a consistent basis, yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
But as far as NXT goes, I have yet to see a bomb match.
Yeah. And you've seen some really good ones, like with Finn Balor and Samoa Joe, you said, recently.
Yeah.
Over the title.
WWE, I was just... You had, like, the Great Khali. And, like, nothing against the guy.
The guy was
but he's not a fucking wrestler.
Great Khali was world champion.
And you get, like... I mean, Big Show, he's been around the block. He's a pro. He's a constant pro.
But he can move in the ring.
Yeah, exactly.
Great Khali couldn't even move around. The motherfucker couldn't even bend over. Yeah.
And so you just... WWE seems more interested in that...
Storyline.
In that storyline.
Yeah.
Versus, like, the craft
having
of wrestling.
Good, consistent product,
And, like I mentioned earlier, like, all those technical wrestlers... Who, you know, they mostly got from WCW.
Yeah.
And in, like, what the early...
Well, yeah, I was showing Brandon my favorite... The wrestler that I call my favorite, like, I wouldn't say that I'm a huge fan of the Colony as a group. I like them. But my favorite singles wrestler in Chikara is Silver Ant, because he's the submission specialist. And I wouldn't go so far to say that he's on a Bret Hart type level, but he almost is. Like, I've seen enough of his matches. Like, the dude can do some shit. He's really awesome. Speaking of dragons, another one of my favorite singles wrestlers, Brandon will appreciate this because of the name and the inspiration. His name is Shenron, the Spirit Dragon, which is from Dragon Ball, the Dragon Ball series. And he's a mask. He kind of looks like a black Ultimo Dragon, honestly. And he is honestly one of the best high flyers I've ever seen. Like, some of the shit he does is fucking ridiculous.
There's a couple of guys in Lucha Underground where just based, like you said, like athleticism and just high flying, they are just, it's ridiculous. And there's so many just like high level, like high flyers.
Yeah.
And I also like Lucha Underground where a match could end with like a schoolboy or it could end with just a regular move.
Yeah.
Just because they've been, they don't do this, they trade 5 finishers and, like, the match drags on. It's like, no, they're, if you're going to sell wrestling, sell it as, these athletes fighting each other. Like, not every match could be a 15-finisher match. Like, WWE just always tries to...
Well, part of the danger that when you do shit like that is you devalue the finisher. Yeah. Right? If somebody hits the stunner and can't pin him 3 times, it's like, well, what's the point? Right, yeah.
But I'm glad I found, because I tried like TNA and it's just like
I've never been able to get too into TNA. I've always appreciated that they exist, and I don't want them to disappear because I like at least wrestlers have somewhere else to go. But like I've never really been able to get into them. How about you, Brandon?
Not really.
Yeah.
Even watching, I've only watched TNA a couple of times, and I'm like,
Now I've seen good matches in TNA.
Yes,
they have
good wrestlers,
some great wrestlers over time.
But as far as just the joy of wrestling that you had when you were a kid, Lucha Underground for me right now is like it's just the tops of.
Chikara isn't perfect. There are even recently like storyline things they will do where I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Right? It's not a lot, but like they had a character last year who started out as a rookie. He hadn't really wrestled yet, but he popped around, and he was Kid Cyclone. He was a rookie who'd come out of the Wrestle Factory. And he was like a crimson mask, like a traditional Mexican luchador-looking mask, and fucking tights with little gold winged boots and shit. And that was a cape and all this silly shit. And he was Kid Cyclone. He was a babyface. But then this whole evil Flood thing happened. There was a storyline called The Flood where this super group of supervillains came in and tried to literally destroy Chikara. And there were several characters who were legitimately killed off during the storyline. And, at the end of that, he came out of that and he suddenly made an appearance and took off his mask and attacked someone with a wrench and all this shit. And he took off his mask and said, my name isn't Kid Cyclone. My name is Kevin Condren. I don't care about the mask. They told me to wear it. I don't care about Chikara tradition. So he set himself up as like the outsider. And he was gonna fucking save people. He was gonna save wrestling or whatever. And so it was interesting. I didn't love him, but he was interesting. He was the nice kind of outsider maverick And the good thing about him was that he pretended to be the savior. Like, he got a couple of other wrestlers to take off their masks and become new characters. Or be themselves, right? But the real truth was, the whole time he was self-aggrandizing. And, like, it was all to put Kevin Condren over. He renamed the group Battleborn. And he introduced them as Kevin Condren presents Kevin Condren's Battleborn, you know, and he would even do shit where the other guy would be beating a guy in the ring, and he'd go to pin him, and he would jump in and throw him out and go, no, I'm going to pin him, so he could get the glory, you know. And it was nice in that hypocritical kind of way, but then at some point, they flipped the switch, and he suddenly started acting more and more erratic, and then they changed the storyline to where he was crazy and started calling himself Snowflake, and having, like, weird face paint in his weird outfit, and it's like, I could see where you're going with a different character, but, like, you just killed whatever heat and momentum Kevin Condren had, right? Like, Kevin Condren and his little Battleborn group, the Outsiders, were interesting, and now you just made him kind of dumb, right? And so it's not perfect, but it's still more consistent and entertaining to me. Any final thoughts, Brandon? I know one thing that you do watch Raw still, and one thing that even though you don't love it, you're hopeful. You've mentioned that you're hopeful that, like a lot of these NXT guys in the future, that maybe if like Vince and Stephanie and Triple H don't keep getting in the way, that these guys will become stars and the product will become better again, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I guess that would be nice. I don't know at this point if
it's
I'll
a pipe dream, yes.
I don't know if I'll personally ever go back at this point, you know.
That's how I feel.
It would be nice if it got better, just to know that it's better.
Right. Totally.
So, we could talk a lot more about this shit, because, you know, Lucha Underground, especially there's all kinds of silly shit in Chikara to talk about. But I think it's a good stepping off point. This has been us. We've talked about wrestling, and I hopefully will continue to love wrestling for years.
Exactly.
Take care, all.